Hi, I'm Tim Abuselman, and this is Progress Over Perfection podcast, a show where we create effective strategies to develop any one of our skill sets and find the next best version of ourselves without perfection. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to introduce you to Micah Grover. Micah, say hi.
Hello, everybody.
On this podcast of Progress Over Perfection, we're going to talk about sleep. But before we get to that, let's learn a little bit about Micah. I've known Micah for several years. He's a great leader, but he's also a great competitor. Micah, tell us a little bit about what you like to do for fun.
So outside of work, I enjoy riding my bikes far too much. I have a gravel bike and a mountain bike. I partake in a lot of races and long endurance ones, as well as short track ones. So anything from a half an hour race to long endurance races up to 10, 12 hours doing century rides. And beyond that, I try and do my best to stay active and mix up the workouts to make sure that I'm keeping a healthy balance so that I can keep the body completely in check.
Yeah. So you guys, what Micah and I have in common is a level of insanity. And he does long bike races. I do long run races. And we both find ourselves either early mornings or late nights trying to make sure that we get our training in, which is actually a really good topic for us to jump into or segue to jump into. And that's sleep. We all need it. We all probably don't get as much as we need to, but how does it affect our abilities to develop ourselves, develop our work lives, or, maybe even jump on the lose weight band and train for these types of races? So, Micah, my first question for you is you worked shift work, you worked late nights, you worked long days. How do you think that your sleep or lack thereof impacts your ability to either manage those or develop?
So the lack of sleep, I could definitely feel when I worked the night shifts and how I was able to impact others as well. So working those late nights till 5 a.m., 6 a.m., something like that, get home, I always made it a point to try and wake up early so I could take care of any business I had to do on my own, which would usually translate to waking up about 10:30 to 11 a.m. And put that in frame of reference, you're getting 5 to 6 hours of sleep a night if I was lucky. And I recall very distinctly the lag that it caused me when I came to work to myself as far as being able to educate others, think clearly, and be the best that I could. I could feel it because my train of thought was never consistent or able to keep that train going in a long, drawn out fashion. So it caused a lot of going back to the beginning, starting over, and sometimes others not being able to follow through because they were just as tired as I was.
I've noticed that for myself that when I don't get enough sleep, the ability to go out there and run those long runs or stay engaged in meetings or even just let go of stress can be really difficult. I've read a few studies that basically say that if you don't get enough sleep, your body won't rebuild. It won't repair itself, and that goes mentally and physically. And so when we don't get the necessary sleep, we don't have the ability to be our best next version of ourselves tomorrow because we're still repairing the previous day. There's a lot of issues with modern technology that keep us from sleep. There's our cell phone, there's TVs, there's the always feeling connected to work, which is a tough thing to get used to. What do you do to make sure you get the right level of sleep?
For myself, I set boundaries. I make sure that I keep a good check on how I'm feeling day over day. And that's a difficult practice because it's easy to think that you're feeling okay when you're not. So as I get through my day, I make sure that it's time to unwind and breathe down. And at those times, I try and step away from my phone, from any contact anybody outside of effectively my wife. And in those moments, I'll either read or paint or do something to allow myself just to slow it down. And it helps me really put myself into a restful state and recognize very clearly when it is time for me to start saying, okay, my body's telling me it's time to go to sleep, allow it to sleep so I can rest and get the proper amount of rest. And then on the flip side, waking up is I have to pay attention to when my alarm goes off, am I really ready to wake up? And that's a bit more difficult because usually you want to just stay in that warm bed. But being able to understand, no, I do really need an extra 15, 20, 30 minutes helps gear me up and say, okay, it means I missed going to bed possibly a bit earlier. I'll scale it back the next night.
can tell you that for me, the best way to get good night's sleep is to exhaust myself during the day. My wife, my kids, they sometimes struggle to sleep. There is no problem with that for me. I hit the pillow and I am out. And I make sure that I stay out. I put my phone on, do not disturb, and I make sure not to look at it throughout the night. If I have to get up, get a snack, use the restroom, I make sure not to look at my phone. And I've instituted some things with my kids. And then at 5 o'clock, if they're watching any type of program, they've got those blue light filtering glasses on, and then absolutely no tablet an hour before bed because I really want them to focus on getting that necessary sleep and the melatonin production and make sure that their circadian rhythms are okay. I did read a couple of funny stories that apparently if your sleep schedule is struggling and you are having trouble with your circadian rhythm, the best thing you can do is go camping. Go camping, sleep out under the stars in a sleeping bag, and let your body naturally go to sleep and go and wake up based on the sun and the moon and everything like that. That sounds terrible to me because I hate camping, but I get the purpose. So my focus is eating right, making sure I'm not having too much caffeine toward the end of the day, and then again, exhausting myself. I find that if I go on a 5, 10, 15 mile run, the sleep takes care of itself. But what about you?
I think the same thing. The exhausting myself is a big one, but being cognizant of when it's too much. So I do make sure I'm hitting my workouts every day. I make sure that I also place those days in between that. I say, no, this is a break day because, again, knowing my body, knowing my rhythm, getting away from it. I don't know if it's so much the camping as much as getting away from just work in general that really helps me out. I enjoy camping, but then it's to the point where now I do a lot of car camping, so it's very easy for me to set up and go. But that's a fun one. I'll have to look more into that and see how that works out for me too, because maybe that's why I'm going to hit the reset button. The other things I make sure to do is to cut back on caffeine as the day progresses. Unless there is a good reason for me to be up late in the evening, I cut it off at 2 p.m. That's the latest I'll ever actually have something. And then I try and scale my food down towards the end of the day to make sure that I'm not eating too far into the evening, as that also generally impacts your ability to fall asleep.
Yeah, sleeping also, you don't get enough. It affects your metabolism. I will say on the caffeine piece, I do reduce it, but being in operations for 20 years, it's really more of a mood enhancer than really something that keeps me awake. The, again, the caffeine, the need of caffeine in the morning isn't actually the fact that you're tired. You're actually in withdrawal from the caffeine. So if you were to just push forward, you wouldn't need it as much, which is kind of a weird way to look at it. If I don't drink this caffeine, I won't actually need the caffeine, but it is what it is. Let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about hitting that exhaustion work, right? When you're getting to the point of being burnt out. Have you been burnt out at work before?
Oh, definitely.
What do you think caused that for you? What is the at most caused your burnout? Because I know what caused mine.
I know that for me, it is taking too much on my shoulders and trying to not take breaks to power through. I had it happen recently where I had to step back, and it wasn't large just based on the fact that I knew I had to take on the additional, but it's kind of a part of requirements my job. That I mean that if I did not take some form of break, it would lead to worse burnout. But I definitely felt it many a times.
So for me, when it comes to reaching that point of exhaustion or burnout, I've heard that self-care isn't selfish. You have to take care of yourself so you have the ability to take care of other people. In the sense that if you, let's say you get hangry, right? You're going to have these hormones running, your stomach's making you anxious, everything like that. And you're not going to put your best foot forward. You're going to put your foot in your mouth. You're going to wish you could take those things back. Same thing goes for sleep if you're not getting enough rest. Same thing goes for having enough nutrients, right? Or being, addicted to that caffeine and needing it. All of those things can cause an emotional roller coaster for your team. And so simple pieces of self-care, like getting enough water, eating a balanced diet, making sure you get enough sleep, while it seems like it's selfish, it's really self-care. I
Wholeheartedly agree. I've noticed when I did not take care of myself, when I ignored that self-care portion, how it impacted me. And it's come in many ways. And it's one of those perpetual things, right, that you have to continually focus on. And sometimes to stray away from it. But I've felt it many times where if I'm not taking care of myself, I'm not or I'm not ready to take care of everybody else around me. And I teach the same thing to my younger leaders or even my tenured leaders is you take care of yourself first. It allows you to also said not selfish. It's putting you in a spot that when it comes time to take care of somebody who's going through something difficult, who has something difficult to address or having to build them up, you're able to be completely there for them and you're not distracted by yourself. Just like the hangry instance, you're not sitting there thinking about, your next snack all of a sudden.
I think they're interrelated too, because if you think about it, like sleep and in prioritizing self-care, a lot of people say, I just don't have time, right? But if you really look at how you spend your time, you're trading your time for things that don't benefit you, whether that's doom scrolling or watching TV. And I'm not saying that watching TV is wholeheartedly bad. That may be a way for you to decompress. But when you look at making the right meals, right, spending the time to do that, or getting on the exercising, or sleeping that extra 30 minutes that you talk about, you are literally trading your time for sleep versus doom scrolling, or sleep versus watching a movie, or sleep. Yeah, I think that if people start realizing, and I tell this to morning leaders and even my kids, is that you have to prioritize the things that make you better. And that is self-care, development opportunities, and then the time you have left. That's when you utilize that wasteful time or even productive time, however you look at it. What's your guilty pleasure for wasting time?
My guilty pleasure, probably video games. I was gonna say biking, but I don't think that quantifies. And that's something that recently too, right? Like I've had to say, okay, I realized I went weeks and months on end where I wasn't able to do it, but that's because I had to prioritize everything else and make sure I was in the right mind. In those gaps of time, I have the self-awareness to say, I would rather not go sit and play that video game because I need to decompress in a different way, or allow the pressure to come off.
Yeah. Currently, my guilty pleasure isn't really how I spend my time. It's actually my diet, and we can talk about that later. I can regularly joke how I work out so that I can eat garbage, but I do have to dial that in because I understand how that impacts the whole ecosystem that is 10. But if I am being also lazy or using that time to where I'm doing stuff that doesn't benefit my overall, I do doom scroll every once in a while. Usually it's around educational stuff, so I don't know if that's bad, but every once in a while I do like to watch fail videos. So, because eventually, maybe I'm all the stupid things that I do for fitness and fun. Well, Micah, I want to say thank you for coming on today. I really appreciate you being here. Fantastic leader in the Rio area. I've known him, worked with him, and I would put anyone up against his skills, and he would totally destroy them, including on the bike.
Well, thank you. The podium says different about the bike, but I appreciate that. Thank you, Tim, very much. This has been fun.
Thank you for joining us for Progress Over Perfection. Remember, it's about showing up. It's not about being perfect. It's about making that next step to find the best next version of yourself.